Welcome to the Traditional Bow Hunting and Wilderness Podcast. I'm going to take a minute. This is Jason Samkovic, and I'm going to show you a little bit of, I just got done making up some arrows this year. I originally wasn't going to make any because, I already have about 2 dozen of these already set up, broadheads on them, ready to roll. But this year I wanted to kind of not really do something different, but make some because of some of the sentimental aspect. But I thought I'd take a minute and recap and show you. I've done videos on my insert system, on that kind of thing, but I'm just going to kind of go over the whole thing here for you and show you what we're talking about. I will put you on a tripod and bring you in and show you all the details, but I thought I'd give you a quick look around on them. It kind of looks like they're coming up kind of yellow, but they're actually like a chartreuse. Fletching is what's on there. These arrows are coming in at the length or total weight wise. I try to get them right around 710 to 715, somewhere in there. That's, I think, let's see here if we put it on a scale and get it set. Yeah, see, we're coming in at 716 grains on that one. So total weight kind of thing is, that's what I'm shooting for, somewhere between 710, 715, right in that general area. And but now I'm going to put you on a tripod, and I'm going to show you what's kind of cool about these. Neat thing is, these 5 arrows right here, these 5 shafts, those were the ones that I killed all 5 deer. I only killed 5 deer last year. All 5 of them I killed were with those arrows right there. So now normally I would have just washed the feathers off and cleaned them up and used them again, but there's some sentimental aspect to these arrows that's pretty cool. All of these broadheads are Magnus 1 2-blade broadheads. Now, some of them are 150 grain, some are 135 or grain, but they're getting hard to find. And now, when I found out that they went out of business, I bought a couple hundred of them. I scoured everywhere I could. Steve Angel over there at Simply Traditional, and the Knocking Point over there in Oklahoma, they had some, and Three Rivers had a couple packs. I called everywhere I could to get as many as I could. So I ended up now, I think I got about 250 of these things, or 300 almost total of them. But this whole set, all these ones that you see on here, what's really cool about these is that they arrived in my mailbox just for no apparent reason kind of thing. And what it was is Steve Teray, Northern Miss Longbows, guy who builds all my bows, best boy around, and one of my best friends. He was at a shoot, and he happened to be walking the tables and saw a guy that had a bunch of these, over 2 dozen, almost 2.5 or 3 dozen. I don't remember exactly how many's in that kit from him, but it was over a couple dozen of these things, and he bought them for me. He knew what kind of broadhead I shoot, and he knows that I was, looking for him, and he bought them, and then he turned around and sent them to me. Wouldn't take any money for them or nothing, and these are not cheap. They're $38, $40 a half a dozen. So you're looking at $80 a dozen, and he sent me over 2 dozen of these things. Wouldn't take any money of them, and it was really kind of cool. So I made these arrows this year. Like I said, even though I got the other ones, these are the arrows that I'll actually be using this season, and I'll be starting with these 5 because of the fact that they're what I killed my deer with last year, and they have heads that were gifted to me by a very good friend, and for no reason like that, which is pretty awesome. You don't hear people doing that kind of stuff anymore, and Steve does it all the time. He's a hell of a guy, genuine as they come. But so that was the whole purpose of making them. Now I'm going to put you on a tripod. I'm going to show you the components and how I actually put it together and what it is. Okay. So what we have here, what you end up with, is we have a gold tip 35-55 shaft. My draw is 26 inches, and so I cut mine at there, 27.5 inches from the back of the insert to the throw of the knock on there. That's basically how I cut them. That way, when I'm drawing that arrow, I still have that little bit right out there in front, which I don't know if you can see, but it gives me that clearance to my hand, so I don't worry about nothing. So I cut them about 1.5 inches longer than what my draw is. And so that's the shaft, though, 35-55. Now I'm shooting a 57-pound bow, 2 of them. I got 2 of Steve's bows. Steve Teray's longbows, like I said, best longbows I've ever shot, best bows I've ever seen. And I have 2 of them identical. Both of them are 57 pounds at my 26-inch draw. They're 60-inch long Baraga models. And so when I was tuning these arrows and trying to get them fly right, I knew before I even did it, the first thing I needed was I wanted ultra-high EFOC. So it may look like a pretty standard arrow for the most part. It is 712 grains, or 716 grains, and so like I said, I shoot for about 710, 715, somewhere in that neighborhood. But the key to this is that broadhead, you have that 140 grain Magnus 2 broadhead, which is one of the widest heads you can get. I love that head. Now then, what I do is I take a steel 100 grain insert which gets glued inside that head just like that, so that becomes my head. So that becomes a 240 grain head right there, as it is. Then I take an insert and I build my own. This is my double insert that I make. It is 2 of these inserts that you see right here with the brass head on there on the front and that, and then I take that on my grinding wheel over here behind me. I take another one and I grind that head, that lip that you see on there, that lip right there, I grind that right off so it's smooth. Then I mount them backwards and I put them together with a nail in there. I've actually done a video, I think I did a video, it's in my arrow making video, and then I also did a article on there on the podcast site, so you can see it. But that basically builds me my 200 grain insert there. So that plus this combo right here, basically this setup right here is giving me 440 grains at the front of my arrow. Now people are going to say, how can you ever get that much weight up front and not have too weak of a shaft on a 35-55 arrow? The difference is if you were to take one of these inserts, just that standard insert, and mount it in there, see it goes to there. So that means on there, so if you're looking at that, that means that this amount of flexible shaft I have is from right here where my fingers are to the back of the nock, okay? That much is how much of that shaft is used for spine testing. That's the amount of flex in there. Now when I go to this insert here, you can see how far into that shaft that goes now. It's not halfway, so I'm taking another 1.5 inches or whatever, so now my spine flexibility of this shaft, actually I'll mark it legit here. So now this is the only amount of my shaft that can flex is from here to here. That's very, very short, probably in the neighborhood of about 23.5 inches of shaft that can actually flex for spine, because up here all of this is stiff with that insert, so there's no flex up here. So that allows me to be able to shoot this lighter spine shaft, because it's actually a very heavy spine shaft. Even though it's 27.5 inches long, the amount of flexible spine is like 23 or 23.5 inches or 23.5, 24, whatever it is, but it's so much shorter. That much of that shaft can't flex. So it's like I actually cut that shaft off about right there, the whole length of my shaft, because the front part won't flex because of that steel or that double insert in there. So that's where I get that stiffness. Ends up giving me, like I said, about a 715 grain arrow with a grand total of 30.325 or something, or 30.125, but it's basically just over 30% forward to center weight on this thing. So you have tremendous forward to center on this actual shaft. It's incredible. It's all the weight is in the front. 440 grains up front on this arrow out of a 715 grain arrow. So I love the setup. Another thing I do that you will notice on here, I do this to all my broadheads. This is a standard Magnus. I'll put it against my shirt so you see it here, but this is a standard tip on a Magnus broadhead as it comes. And then here's the one I do. You can see that I kind of reshape that and get rid of that needle point. That right there is a very easy part to bend or break or roll over, and this way they don't. So I actually do that to all of mine. I do it right on my grinder. It takes me a whopping half a second. Think I've done videos on that for you too if you wanted to see, but I do not want that needle point on there. It's too vulnerable. It's just too weak and no strength by it. So I actually knock it down and round that out and put kind of a little bit of a chisel point right on the tip of those. So that's what I do for it. But that kind of shows you, that's the arrow setup. That's what I'm using. Works like a champ. This is going into my 4th year, I think. I think it's 4 years of using these arrows. And they blow right through there. My short little 26-inch draw that I have, and Steve's, I'm shooting a 57-pound longbow, and his bows are great design. I love everything about them. But, I'm blowing through animals like you wouldn't believe. It's unreal, the amount of penetration, the energy, the great flight characteristics. I've done videos on this too that you can also see where I took this same broadhead and same shaft, no feathers or nothing on there, on a bare shaft, and I was shooting it at over 20 yards with that huge broadhead on there, and I was getting perfectly good arrow flight out of it on a bare shaft with no feathers. That's because of that forward to center weight in there. I love these arrows. I love the setup. So I thought I'd take a second as I just got done making the rest of these. I just came out, finished putting a quick grind on the broadheads. Now I'm going to take them in and hand sharpen them all and make sure they're good. But it'll be neat to be in the woods this year with an arrow with this kind of sentimental value. Like I said, shafts that I killed animals with before, broadheads that were gifted to me by a good friend. I'm excited. Hopefully it brings me a lot of good luck this year. So one more thing I forgot to mention in here. People ask me all the time, constantly, why, if I'm going to do all that, do I still shoot 140 or 135 grain broadhead? Why don't I go to like a 200 grain or a 300 grain head and eliminate some of that other stuff in there? There's one simple rule or reason that I do that, and that is these right here. That is a Judo. Okay, this is a glue-on 135 grain Judo tip. Shoot these religiously. I constantly shoot these things. I always have one in my quiver. I shoot them all the time. And if I were to use a 200 grain head up here, or 300 grain head here, they don't make heavy enough inserts for me to be able to really make that a 300 grain setup up here on the front side. You get it close, but not exact. And I like to have that weight within 30, 40 grains of each other. So by using a 135 grain head, putting it on a 100 grain steel adapter, I can take a 135 grain Judo, put a 135 grain Judo on a 100 grain steel adapter, and this head weighs the same amount as this head does. So now my practice setup and my Judo shooting that I do with stump shooting, this is the same exact weight as what this is. If I were using a 300 grain head on a 100 grain brass insert, there's no possible way, or a 200 grain head, I'm not getting that. I cannot use that. Judos are only made right now, at this date I'm recording this, the heaviest you can get them at is 135 grains. Yeah, I wish somebody would come out with a 250 grain Judo. That would be an amazing thing for a lot of people, or a 300 grain Judo, but till they do, this system allows me to be able to use both of these and have the same exact arrow flight. Sorry, Skeeto there. Same arrow flight, same arrow characteristics, same spine, same everything that I need. I'm getting all this same stuff because of that combination. So that's the reason that I built these arrows with the component setup that I did. Now, the double insert in there is also a tremendous bonus because, as you guys know, when you break arrows, especially carbon, they don't have very good shear strength. And when you break them, usually you break them right at the back of the insert on there. Well, this one has got all that extra length of insert in there that just makes that much stronger. Very rare that I break an actual shaft now because of that. Where it used to be, you shoot a deer and you catch him in a you get caught through that shoulder blade or something like that, or you catch him in the opposite leg, he'll swing that leg back and snap that shaft off. With that having that extra length in there, that does not happen to me very often anymore. It's almost like an internal footing in there that strengthens that shaft. If I hit a rock and usually you used to hit a rock and you'd send that insert right into the shaft, or you'd end up peeling the shaft out. With that double insert and being epoxied all the way into there like that, it makes this thing super solid. So I love the setup. It's not very expensive, and it works like a champ. Other people say, well, why don't you just use one of those inserts and use the gold tip weight system and screw it in the end? Because that weight system is a heck of a lot more money. It's a lot cheaper for me to buy a bag of 100 of these inserts and then take one, flip it around, and use it like that. And I get that strength and that spine, and that's all the benefits that I was just talking about. So, but that's the reason I do that. Because when I put that video out there, a lot of people, well, why don't you this? Why don't you just do that? How come you don't, and I believe me, if there was a better way, I'd be doing it. But this is the absolute best way that I found, and I love it. I would not change one bit of this arrow setup. Like I said, I've been using it for 3 straight years. I love everything about it. It flies like bullets when they come out of there. Bare shaft tune's perfect. Paper tune's perfect. Flies great. Bare, like I said, I don't even have to have the feathers on there. Another thing people ask me about too. Well, if you're using all that forward to center weight on there, why do you have such a high feather? And as you can see, that's a big 4-inch, or that's a 4-inch, but it's a high back feather. That's a lot taller in height than most feathers. I chop them that way on purpose. I use a 4-inch feather, and I actually modified my chopper to get it as high, so I can get that height as high as I possibly can. The reason for that is when I shoot that, I want to see that. When that thing's spinning down range, and it's going towards the target like that, I want to see that big ball of fletching spinning. I don't want to see just a little small diameter anything. That's why I use a big helical. You see that when it flies, I don't know if I can spin it on my, like that. I got a broadhead on there, but when you see that fly like that, I like seeing that big golf ball size fletching head towards the target. So that's the reason that I use that size feather on there, and it does stabilize it, and when they're wet they work. And like I said, but technically I don't even have to have feathers on this arrow. I could hunt with this with no feathers, and as I said, showed you in that video, it flies exactly like I want it to. So I love everything about these arrows. Absolutely love everything about them.